Okay, we'll get started here then. Somewhere between Wapaton and El Paso, we all lost our identities, our wants and our needs, and we became united as one team. And I think we all agree on that we were very much all together on everything we did. We went to El Paso, Texas, and to Anapra, which is the poorest part of Juarez. The pictures in Anapra, they're going to show many differences than our way of life. Very different environment, different culture, different language. But these are our brothers and sisters in Christ. And I hope as you look at the pictures, you will see how happy these people are, the warmth, the kindness, and the love that they showed us. Three people left on Thursday, June 29th. They drove pulling our pickup with a trailer, and we were able to load that with supplies we wanted to donate to them, our luggage, and our tools. We gathered together that morning, and we did a prayer circle and a send-off. The next morning, 8 of us flew out of Fargo. We had devotions at the airport. We added a sweet little lady that just joined us. And we wore our Thrivent t-shirts quite often, quite a few places, and we really got some really nice comments wearing those. It really was kind of, I think we enjoyed wearing them just because people would come and say, oh, I know that company, that's a really good company, and it kind of unified us. We all knew we were together. But with that being said, let's get started. This is the morning of our send-off. Let me keep going, Jean. They talk the whole way. Anyway, keep going. Anyone want to talk about this picture? We kind of knew we were in trouble at this point in time. We were only there about an hour.
We were sitting in the airport at El Paso waiting for our ride from Ysleta Mission. We were told somebody would come and pick us up, and they weren't there. So Renee went outside.
Actually, Tracy and I went outside because it was a long wait, and we just wanted to go outside and see what was happening. Well, all of a sudden, Tracy and I see this pickup drive up. But they had told us that the person picking us up would be wearing a Thrivent t-shirt. Well, 2 gentlemen came. They did not have Thrivent t-shirts on, and I ran back into the airport and I said to everybody, you won't believe this, but I think we're riding into Mexico, or to El Paso, to where we stayed, in a cattle pickup. And they were like, no way, it can't be true. And I said, yes, they have the Ysleta Lutheran Mission sign on the pickup. And I don't see anybody else, so I'm sure we're riding in this pickup. So we got outside, and this green van pulled up behind the pickup. Neither one of them in their Thrivent t-shirts. So Gene got on his phone and he called back, and I was already in the van and I already had my luggage in the truck. And they're saying, wait a minute, we don't know if these people are safe and if this is who's supposed to be picking us up. Well, in the end, Gene did find out it was the right person, right?
Right. As I was trying to email them, they were emailing us and said, there's been a change, we're sending someone else, and the person that was supposed to come got tied up, couldn't show up, but the fellow that came spoke no English, so all we did is we asked him, we thought Alonzo was supposed to be picking us up, and we said, are you Alonzo? No, Martin. I said, okay, and that was as much English as I got out of Martin as his name. So.
But before that, he had asked, he says, okay, well, we know the person picking us up. And they said, yes, we'll send a picture. And the picture was a Thrivent t-shirt. And we're all sitting there with Thrivent t-shirts. Well, when Renee came in and said, this is what we were going to write in, we should have known then we were in trouble. We had a character amongst us.
So anyway, we safely got to our dorm, and I think the next pictures will show our dorm.
Well, that's unpacking at the mission.
This is at the mission. We're unpacking our supplies and taking them into the dorm.
Well, keep going, aren't there some interior? These were the bathroom or,
The bathrooms were communal, just like the dormitories were when I was in college, a lot of those years ago.
Except in the showers, there were walls.
Yes, there were walls. We had a laundry room, and the other on the left is a linen room. We made our own beds. And our kitchen, which Tracy washed everything.
When we left, I don't think they'd ever seen the kitchen as clean as what Tracy had it.
Tracy left it cleaner than they had ever seen it. Just a word about having Tracy along. We probably were the best fed mission group ever to go to Ysleta because we had Tracy. She took such good care of us. Imagine coming home from a 10-hour workday in 102-degree heat and find brownies and ice cream. Yeah. This was the dormitory rooms. We slept, we managed to be able to, everybody had a bottom bunk, which us older folks thought was nice. And this was the communal room where we had our Bible study every night. Oh, Sean?
One of the days before we left, Pastor had sent an email about Ysleta, and I was reading through it. And as I got down a ways, I saw something about Rotacare. I thought, what? Sounds like Rotary. And reading down further, came to find out that the El Paso Rotary Club actually made a free clinic at Ysleta. And in my mind, I'm trying to figure out, how big is this area? Will we see it? I always wanted to go somewhere and exchange a Rotary flag with somebody. And come to find out, oh, that's just right by the church. If you look, that's the church. So it's right across the parking lot, so it's very neat. They did that as their 100-year anniversary project. One of the Rotarians was a contractor, so he did all the work. The woman in the middle, I think, is the only one that gets paid. I think she's an RN. The doctors donate their time, and all the rest of the people there are students from Texas Tech. Yep, from the medical school. So they had like $250,000 worth of equipment was donated for this clinic, and they've had more since then, so it's a really nice clinic. People don't have to have any insurance to get help. They can just show up. It's a first come, first serve. So there was people showing up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and it didn't open until like 9. And that guy on the left is Paul Hutchton. He's the one I got in contact with. I emailed the Rotary Club down there, and I said, oh, we'll send you on to Paul. So his first thing was, he goes, so you and the pastor can stay at my place. But very nice individual. So yeah, just showing their 100-year anniversary. I can't remember that exactly, but I think they can get prescriptions like $5, any prescription.
We were lucky enough to tour this because of having the Rotarians along. Seeing patients.
Right, they brought us right in while they were seeing people, all 11 of us, and took us through, and we did a tour, and then we went into another building, and he gave us about a 20-minute, it was just like a Rotary meeting. I was happy to be there. So that's just one of the pictures of one of the rooms. As you can see, it looks like an office or a room here, so it was really nice. Yep, and then as Lori said, every week they have a different specialty thing too. So if they had maybe something on diabetes or different things like that, that people with those things could come.
The week that we were there, there was an OBGYN doctor, so it was called a woman's clinic. So people that maybe were pregnant or had some woman issues, they would come and they would get seen by an OBGYN. The week after we were gonna be there, it was gonna be a bone doctor, what's that? Sorry. Orthopedist. So if they had issues with bones, then they knew that they could come that week and they would be seen by a specialist in the area that they had problems with. They had a list there of all of the upcoming weeks, so if you had a specific problem that you wanted to see a doctor for, you knew what day to come to see a specialist.
Just one last thing, it was kind of nice when I brought it up to my club, they donated $300 for their free clinic down there, so that was kind of cool. And we got a El Paso Rotary flag now for our club, that's kind of neat.
Go ahead, holler out.
Oh, I was just going to say that when I was in Ecuador, the Rotarians were very, very instrumental there in providing places for us to stay, places for people to come for medical care, and when we were there, the Rotarians did a lot to open up free clinics to all the people in the community. So Rotarians are known for this throughout the world.
And this is a component that we may expand our collection of goods and items to help out with that clinic for next year. So.
Yeah. We have a lot of free mission, medical, instrumentation and things in Fargo, and all you have to do is go up there and pick and choose what you want to take on your mission trips.
Thank you, that's good to know. We toured the Rotarian Clinic in the morning, and then after that, this was all done on the Saturday. They had 3 different jobs for us. And after we got done with that, we worked at a food giveaway clinic, and we cleaned the grounds. If anyone's, I'll just look through here. Yep, that was JD. This is actually Friday. When we first got there. We got there before Pastor and the 3 that were driving, and so they picked us up at the airport and then brought us back. We had something to eat, and then they gave us some jobs. And this is orphan grain train supplies that have come in on pallets, and they had them in a warehouse. And they asked us to move them from the pallets into the thrift shop that was on the grounds. I don't know if they've ever worked with a group like us. We're very industrial. We found 2 shopping carts, and we had a wheel cart, and we moved how many pallets? Because we really did a lot of work. Yeah, and then somewhere in there, we didn't have any of our supplies with us. We didn't have anything to drink. We got really, really thirsty, and they brought us a case of water. So I'm hoping that's the next slide. Yep. We were so happy to see the water in that. This is the food giveaway on Saturday. I'll let Lori talk on that.
Oh, I was just going to mention that, we knew it was going to be warm down there in El Paso and Juarez, and so we were kind of ready for that. But the day we got down there, actually, we were cooler in El Paso than North Dakota was. We checked back, and we were probably in the low to mid 80s the day we got there. Now, it got warmer by the next day, but I think from talking to the people back here, it was actually hotter here in Wapton than it was in El Paso when we got down there.
This was Saturday morning. Friday, when we were moving those orphan grain train boxes, there were a group of women in this warehouse, and behind Carrie's head there you can see the white bags. Those were like 13-gallon garbage bags that they were filling with food from orphan grain train boxes and from local grocery stores that would contribute food. And they filled up these grocery bags, but then somehow, someplace, somewhere, and we aren't sure when or how, they received all of this fresh food. They received bread. I mean, probably what, 6, 7, 8 huge boxes of bread. They received fresh vegetables and lettuce and fruits and all of this stuff. And when we got there, they had it open and kind of organized, but what Carrie and I did was we handed them a bag of one bag of the garbage bag full of food. Each person got one bag of that food, and then they got 2 things of lettuce. Is that right, Carrie? 2 lettuces. And then they would, at the beginning, they got 2 mangoes and a lime, or lemon. And then as the mangoes ran out, then they started getting bananas and different things. And when it ran out, it ran out. And if you were at the end of the line and they ran out of that, you didn't get anything fresh. But they did have some big pies and some big like birthday cakes from Walmart that didn't have any name on it or anything, but these were all like outdated type of things, maybe by just one day. And the bigger families would get like a large pie or a cake. And we kind of had to determine, or this gal that's standing right in the front to the right, she was the daughter of the gal that ran this food giveaway, and she spoke Spanish and English, so she was kind of our interpreter, and she would let us know when it was a large family and we should get out one of the larger items. And then to the left of there, you can see there's a man in this checkered shirt with kind of a blue cap. That was Martine, correct? He was such a worker. That little man did not stop for 2 hours. He constantly, because I would hand him the white bag and then he would box it up for the people, and he would take the things from Carrie and box it up, and he was just constantly working. I don't know how he worked so hard for so long, but he was a very, very hard worker. You can kind of see the one lady has a yellow card in her hand, and they have 2 colors of cards, yellow and blue. This week was the people that have yellow cards. They have to apply for these cards in advance. They have a yellow card, they come this week. If they have a blue card, they would come the next week. And there were some people that actually came that had blue cards, and we had to turn them away. We couldn't give them food because it wasn't their week. So it was really kind of sad.
Kind of ran out.
Yeah, and we did run out of the bread, and towards the end we ran out of all the fresh vegetables too. So some people just got a sack, the dry goods. So, but it was very efficient. Lasted about 2 hours. I think there's another slide where we show the people. Is the next one where the people are waiting? There's the people waiting. They just stood in line and waited until their turn.
And that line went all the way down the building. Good length, about 100, 120 feet.
Yeah.
While Harry and Lori were helping with food, Roxy was working.
Okay, this picture probably doesn't mean anything to most of you, but to us 11, it really does. And it just goes to show how we were raised in North Dakota, Minnesota, our surrounding area, with our work ethic. That dog kennel, like caged, on the right there you see is empty, but when we got there, it was not empty. And it was full of boxes, not just packaged nice, but like thrown in there to the top of the building, all around it. Well, several of us thought, well, we can't let this stay like this, and we organized it the way we would back home here. So literally we got in there and broke all those down, and I wish we would have pictures of that, but JD and many of us were in there on top of the boxes, pulling them out and breaking them down. So we had probably like Sean and Bill and Jean and JD and I. And it probably took us that good 2 hours. But I remember several sayings that like, oh, that's good enough, oh, that's good enough. And it's like in our book, it wasn't good enough because, like I said, we were, well, I'll just say, being on the farm, you do things right the first time and not redid and overdone and overdone. So we found things in there that you wouldn't want to even touch. But we were on a mission, and our little saying about what happened in El Paso stays in El Paso, but I'll share a couple things with you. There was a loaded diaper from several years ago. Not that we picked it apart or anything, but
we went by the newspapers that were in this, and I don't know if they use it for our trash or what, but to us, this was like kindling. It was so dry there, so like if you would even happen to kick the gravel the wrong way, we were afraid that it was going to go up. So those 3 boxes there are all those boxes that were in that kennel, but it was kind of a fun little excursion. We kept going back there to make sure they didn't put any more back in there because it was like, no, that's not what that's for. So it doesn't look like much of a project to you, but believe me, it was quite the sight, and we think we did a really good job on it. But we learned a lot of stuff them couple hours we were in there just by taking them all out of there and breaking them down the right way. So yeah, that's what that's all about.
We were actually helping them. They had an inspection coming up, and so that was what we did in the afternoon. We cleaned on the grounds. We raked and picked up garbage. We had 3 of them or 2 of them that went down in.
We had 3 or 2 of them that went down in the sewer outside the mission, actually. We have no idea what they were doing down there. Storm drain, okay, but they sat there and cleaned. It is kind of our North Dakota ethic. What?
Can I tell a quick story?
Yeah.
It was really hot there, like you've heard, but we were all getting that out of there, and
We made the mention that, oh my gosh, a little bit of rain would sure be nice, and lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, God answered our prayers, and down came some really nice big drops of rain, and it was like, oh my gosh, thank you. But it was just, and you could smell it, so it was like, came at the right time, but that really helped because that was a mess.
I think this was right after. Isn't that a bunch of lookers?
Aren't we great? And the end.
it was hot and tired work.
Any comments?
Before we started.
This is the family we built for. Does anyone want to cover them?
Sure, I'll talk to you. So this is William, not really. Yeah, but there were so many names that I heard. But what did you say? Guillermo. But anyway, we called him William. And his wife, Maria, they're the couple that received the house. And just to give you an idea, the people that receive a house, they have to go through a vetting process. And if you look on the devotion booklet that's on the table, there's a picture of 5 churches. One of them is ours. The 4 churches that are left, they are collaborators in the project, and so they have a committee where they evaluate who is going to get a house when. And so that we go, when we haven't had any of that process, we just go to build a house for this couple. But there is a process by which families are chosen to receive homes.
The only thing I would add to that is watch their faces. These are the pictures taken when we first got there, and you watch the faces as the pictures go to the end. That's the part that kind of gives me goosebumps to see that transformation. They had 11 crazy people in the front yard for a week and watched us. We built this house for them, and it just, their whole attitude, body language just changed. The other thing I'll add with this is generally the family takes care of the elderly people, but they have 2 daughters and they've abandoned them, so they have no one to take care of them. Was it the week or 2 before we came, Alonzo went and checked on them. They had no food. When he came that week, they had no food. He gave them some money, but they just have no food. So
That's their living room.
Yeah, we shared our food with them, and to watch them eat the food, I think could bring tears. They were so happy. The first day I gave them a bag of potato chips, and it took them I don't know how long to eat that. They broke it into little pieces and sat and ate those chips. And then we, that must have been earlier in the day, because then we would leave our food with them at the end of the day. They had no refrigeration, so they had 3 buckets in right off to the right of this. Is there? No, I don't think so.
He's a part of the family.
Yeah. And I'll let Lori talk about him, but so they'd take our sandwiches, put them in an ice cream bucket, and then they sat them in these tubs of water. That was all they had for air conditioning. Or refrigeration, excuse me.
This is Cholo. We aren't really sure who he belonged to, but he was always at the work site every day. There was a barbed wire fence between William and Marie's place and the neighbors, and there was a hole just large enough that he jumped through back and forth, and that's where he came through. His name is Cholo, and about 2 days after we found out his name was Cholo, we asked Alonzo what that meant in English, and he says it means thug. So we had fun with Cholo. And if you see in the right-hand picture, he could not stay out of our paint. His tail is blue, the one side of his head was blue, his mouth was blue because he wanted to drink it. Cholo was blue by the time we were done.
This is pictures of the house. Whoops.
That's the front of their house.
This is their kitchen in their house.
But that stove doesn't work, does it?
We've had conversations on that.
Electricity to run that stove is gas. Oh, it's gas?
The stove had gas burners. There were no gas tanks, no LP tank, no gas lines of any kind that we could see. We kind of assumed that if they needed heat, they probably burned wood in the oven, basically. The electricity, we'll see a little bit more about that, but the amount of wiring that existed to bring electricity into their house was in no way enough to run a stove or anything like that. We'll have some pictures, I think, where that'll show up.
That's the front of their house.
That
No, Cedar Road. Okay.
Yeah, the slab where we built the new house is what you see right in front with the bucket sitting on it, facing towards the front here is the slab where we built the new house. And that is quite typical of the buildings in the area, but that is what they were, that is what their living conditions consisted of. This next one.
And you can see the border fence all the way in the back.
Yeah.
That's the border.
The lumber there, that's the supplies that they had lined up for us to start building the house. And the mattress there, laying on top of the chipboard there, it was, when it was that warm, they said they actually brought their mattress outside and they slept outside in their yard. Yeah, the wires that you see running up there, that is the electric supply for their house. They were probably a little bit heavier than the wires that you would hook up to your car trailer. I'm thinking it was probably like maybe 16 gauge would maybe be stretching it. It might have been lighter than that. Two separate wires that hung through from the house down. They were supported by a wooden post part of the time we were working on there so that we didn't keep stepping on them. Held up by clothespins. Part of them, where they came into the yard, ran through a garden hose and came back out. And it's, you know, if anybody has experienced in any of the old houses that were first wired when electricity came into the area, all the houses were wired with two separate wires. There was, you know, your neutral and your hot wire were separated by insulators or whatever. Well, they had two separate wires. There were no insulators separating anything. The wires were hanging together and they were probably taped and spliced every 3 to 4 feet. So everything that was there was quite marginal. And as we ran the power equipment, we had a saw that we used for cutting some of the lumber, and when they were working on the sheetrock, they were using an electric drill. If you ran the saw and you wanted to run the drill would turn about as slow as my finger is turning. So you had to shut one off if you wanted enough electricity to run. You couldn't run two power tools at the same time.
Who's the electrician?
All of us.
You mean to the house?
No, he did this himself.
Yeah, William did.
The Alonzo was kind of our crew leader, you know, one that was kind of in charge of the project, and he was the one that we went to and asked questions. Okay, how do you do this or how do you do that? And Alonzo assured us repeatedly, day after day, OSHA will not be stopping to check the work here. You don't have to worry about that. So everything that was done would not meet our code in any way, shape, or form as we build things up here. But he thought the way we did things was quite elaborate compared to most of the ways that the wiring was done. We'll see some pictures of that later on here.
Did they have a power unit someplace where the breakers were?
We have a picture of some of that, but basically it is not anything that we are used to around here. There were no breakers. There was wires that came in from a meter out in the street side. And basically the wires ran direct to the outlet, and that was all you had.
We did not connect it up to the house when we were finishing. We wired the house. But then Alonzo, he says, I gotta go talk to them. That was up to their responsibility to get it connected to the new house, so we really don't know if he had someone that would help him, or, you know, we just couldn't do that. This is the wall behind their house. One between America and Mexico. Okay, these are neighborhood pictures. I like this picture. This is taken from the church in Anapra where we did VBS, and that at the top of the hill where we built would be off to the right and further down. It just shows so much, the sand, the garbage. It was everywhere. The streets that a lot of times the streets when you went down, you'd drive like this. It was a wide street, but you were going around the garbage, the tires, whatever was laying there. Yeah, the ruts, the bumps, there were dogs everywhere. People walked. It just showed a lot.
They won't let me.
I don't think there was a start and a stop. Yeah, in that kind of where William and Maria's house was, there was one house after it on the street, and then it was just like a big garbage dump. But it was just everywhere. They just didn't pick up. I don't think they knew where to put it.
This neighborhood where we built this house was on an old garbage dump. So, yeah, to pick up the garbage, we would have had to use a bulldozer.
We had to hold Roxy back because she just wanted to clean up that neighborhood. But we knew how well she had done with the boxes back at the mission, and we knew that we did not have the time to let her get started on that because she'd still be down there. You'll see the tires. One thing I'll have to say, they do not have any trouble with recycling tires. They use used tires for everything. It's landscaping, it's street corners, it's retaining walls.
Gates to their house.
Gates to their house, everywhere. I mean, old tires are everywhere. I've never seen so many old tires in use for one reason or another anywhere I've ever been.
Don't they make sandals out of them?
Could have. We didn't notice. We didn't see it.
No, you tell us about the store, what you saw.
It looks really nice inside. I never did look in there and see that. I just saw the couple of Coke signs out there, and I always saw two guys sitting there kind of looking out the windows. Do you see the colorful stuff right there? You can kind of see there's some chips and stuff of that sign that's kind of hanging there. So yeah, it didn't look like something existed there, but the one day when we were going down to the job site, I mean, you just keep going down worse and worse and worse roads. And to the point where we often thought we might get the van stuck in the sand and stuff. And all of a sudden, as I pick my head up, I see this great big Coke truck go down the road, you know, down to nothing. There was nothing but the houses down there. I'm like, somebody stole a Coke truck. And yeah, they pulled up a huge Coke truck, like 50 feet long, it seemed like, pulled up and delivered Coke to this little store. It was kind of interesting.
Another thing about the garbage is, if you see all this garbage, it meant nothing to them. It was of no value. And if it was something that they could use, they did, because a lot of these places had like a, you know, a sign from one of the stores downtown that is no longer there as their gate or their, you know, side of their house or whatever. But everywhere we went, there was piles and piles of garbage, like water bottles or, you know, yeah, just trashy stuff. But everything in Juarez for a soft drink is a Coke. Do you want a Coke? And it might not be a Coke, but that's how they say it. Do you want Coke? And for Coke, they have Fresca, Orange, Real Coke, and a few different ones, but they have them in recyclable bottles. So the red crates in the picture, you could go over there and get a Coke for $1. And then if you brought your bottle back, you'd get 50 cents back. So all I do is refill them. So when the Coke truck pulls up, they're picking up all those empty bottles. But they did also have some, I don't know, maybe some plastic bottles in their other machine that they had inside there. But they didn't speak English, so you just had to say Coke. And then they knew what you wanted. So, but then, like I said, they gave you pesos back. So then we brought a few of those back for, you know, just to keep. Are there other slides? Okay.
And that store was located directly across the street from the house we were building, so I think we were probably there, it might have been the second day, was it, before we even realized it was a store, because all it was just an open window, was all you could see.
Yeah, this is one of the pictures at the end, and you can probably see it again, but that's one of those, like I said, look at William and Maria's face. The rest of us are really, really tired, but let's talk about any of these, just yell out. Oh.
I don't know if you know Norma Nosek. She's in Rotary with Pastor and I, and she actually donated some ramen noodles to bring down there and stuff, and when she came to drop them off, I showed her a picture. And I don't know if it's still over there or not, but in front of their house at the time, before we did anything, they had all these mattresses, and first thing she said, well, the first thing I do is clean up those mattresses, she said. But look, what they do with the mattresses, their whole fence was the bed springs of mattresses. They keep all that and use it. Oh yes, they had sound systems in these places you would not believe. I just had my little speaker, so we had some dueling music. At times I tried to turn the Johnny Cash up loud enough, but they had pretty good music, so we had all the sound we wanted, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so it's Spanish music on one side, Spanish on the other side, Johnny Cash in the middle, and in the roosters crowing. They were always crowing. Here we go. First day, first wall. Okay,
there's some video.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Who knows which ones have videos?
The fella in the red shirt that you don't recognize, that's Alonzo. He was
Construction manager. This is a video. third wall.
I am flossing Renee's shirt there. We found, they had a dress code, so we could wear tank tops and that, but we found a new use for dental floss and we tied up our shirts.
Yeah, Alonso Gonzalez is hired specifically by Ysleta Lutheran Mission to lead these teams of house builders, and they have a basic cookie cutter type plan for building a house. You have to adapt every house for every situation. So for instance, we were planning on building a 24 by 12 structure. We ended up building a 20 by 16 structure. It was a 12 by 20 because of the space. Right, because of the space that was available. But then Alonso was there to tell us how to do things, to where's the window going to go, how are we going to make sure the window is in the right place, where's the door going to go. He was there every step of the way. But we also had some great experience on our team. People who knew how to build things, and I think that worked very well. It interacted well with Alonso and our team. So
Bill and Sean were our foremans.
And yet, I think Lori's done a little bit of everything too. She was pulling wires and that pretty good.
But one thing I'll say, I mean, everybody chipped in and everybody did their part. First day getting started, it was kind of like we had building the walls. We were people wall to wall. You had to move out of the way in order to have an area to work. Once the walls started going up, then we had a little more space. But I have to give a heads up to JD. I think he did a little bit of everything, and I was really basically surprised probably, but really not, because I know he's a good hard-working farm kid, but he pitched in, and he got some of the jobs that either other people didn't want to do or couldn't do, and he was one of the sparks on our team. I think everybody kind of kept going watching JD, because he had lots of energy, and he kind of gave us all a little enthusiasm.
So what was the attitude of...
I'm just going to say this is...
So what was the attitude of the community and the people living there towards the mission group and towards the family that was receiving this bountiful gift?
Joan is asking what was the attitude of the community. The kids, I think there's probably some video or some pictures later on. The kids were fascinated by us. They were there watching us all the time. The neighbors were kind of cautious at first, but you could see as the week went on, when we kept coming back every day, and it was the same people every day, they would come out more, they would stand out, and they'd watch us. And of course there was the language barrier, so we couldn't speak. But when we took sandwiches for lunch over to Mexico, when we came back across the border, we could not bring any food back. So we had to either eat what we brought or give it away. We started giving sandwiches away to the kids and the moms and the dads in the neighborhood. And I think that helped too, that they knew, we were there for a reason, and we were good people. It wasn't anything to be afraid of for us. But the kids were there constantly. And Renee and Tracy Renee and who went shopping? Renee and Roxy went shopping, and we'll let you talk about that later for what they did for the kids.
The only other thing I would add is we felt completely safe there. I don't think any of us ever did not feel safe. Even though you knew you had to be cautious, we were always together. We locked our vehicles, but we felt very, very safe. I just want to say this is the end of the first day. There we go. Now we're on the roof. That's Ori. And I call that out, just, and JD, but because later we'll see Roxy hanging upside down.
That's Alonzo.
Yeah. There we're pulling wires in the lower left and starting on the insulation. Anyone has any comments? I like that picture. Someone fix it around. I like that picture.
Just inspecting the work.
Yeah.
Talk about Mormon.
How do you know why I left the school? That's Bill at the high school.
I can't believe he's all alone in the picture, because so often, you know, we did not have a lot of space.
Taking a break.
So you can't get by yourself very often.
Bill is standing there holding the drill, and it looks like he's just contemplating his next move. I think actually he was waiting for the saw to stop running so he could run the drill.
I don't think we have a picture of it, but I apologize now to everybody else for all the goofing off I did too. But when JD was so helpful and he'd hold up the sheetrock and he'd be like, "Would you guys hurry up?" And we'd tease him and go, "Gooch, gooch, gooch," you know, poke him in the ribs and stuff, and he'd start laughing and say, "Stop it."
Yeah, they told us they had tools and stuff. We didn't really have to bring things. Well, we did bring one platform to walk across and a little step stool. We know if we go in the next time we need more ladders, things like that. They were a little short on some things. This is when we got to the painting. Painting was optional, by the way. It was not required that we painted it, but our team, we weren't going without painting both the inside and the out. So, does anyone want to talk about the paint? You want to talk about the paint, Renee?
So for the painting, like she said, it wasn't included in the cost of the supplies and things, but I think each of us knew that we did not want to leave unless the house was painted. So when we started talking about, well, should we chip in or whatever to get this extra paint, everybody said, yeah, let's do it. And we went to Home Depot in El Paso, and we were told it would cost $150 to get 5 gallons of paint. Well, we walked in and we went to the paint section and we saw some 5-gallon buckets of return paint. And Maria wanted her house to be blue. Lo and behold, this blue was the perfect color that she wanted because she said she wanted it to be the color of her shirt. And if you remember in previous pictures, her shirt was about this color blue. So we ended up getting that 5-gallon bucket of paint for $60. So that was a huge savings. But the little boy on the left, his name is Jonathan. He was with us every day. And I'm not quite sure how he got to be there every day, but he was a friend of Alonzo's, and he wanted to help pound, and he wanted to help paint, and he wanted to eat our lunch, and he loved the brownies that Tracy made. And she promised him that she would bring brownies the second day for him. Lo and behold, what happened, Tracy? We ran out, or? But he didn't come the day she brought the brownies. So Tracy personally delivered them to his home so that he got the brownies the next day. So we got quite attached to the children, and especially Jonathan. No, he wasn't sick. He just loved us so much, and he loved... Oh, 6? Sick. No, he just enjoyed being with us. And I have video that's not on here, but he learned Jesus Loves Me in Spanish during VBS. And one day when I gave him a sandwich, I asked him if he would sing for me, and he sang the entire song in Spanish, which was really nice. This is the start of the painting. The left is Roxy and I. And then William, we gave him a paintbrush, and he was just thrilled that we gave him the opportunity to help us. And you can see the big smile on his face. The far right picture is the side of the building that was right next to the existing house that we first showed you. And there was only about maybe a foot to 18 inches between the two buildings. So Roxy and I were determined to get that side painted, even though we couldn't really get in there very well. So Roxy went to the top and she painted from top down, and I put a roller on a big stick, and we reached in there as well as we could. I'm sure it's not perfect from upside down, but we did get it painted, and William and Maria were very excited we got the whole thing finished.
Another thing on the paint, I think we heard the siding was somewhat weatherproof, but they said it would probably only last about 5 years if it was not painted. And it was hot enough and enough work that we thought we wanted it to last more than 5 years.
And we did see one of the houses that Pastor had built 5 years ago.
About 5 years ago.
And it looked just like he painted it today. You know, it looked really nice. They had weather. Real heavy, but painted. Tracy, can I just say, Tracy cooked for us Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then we were going to have, the mission was going to bring us supper on Wednesday night, so she didn't have to cook for us then. And Thursday we were going to have, the church ladies were going to make a meal for us, so we were supposed to go out that night, but we were still painting. So she didn't have to cook. So she came and she spent 2 days doing stuff too. So she got right in there. There we are.
Yeah, this is at the very end, and it was really kind of funny because we wanted them to walk into the house for the very first time, but we were trying to, Pastor was trying to get William to pick up Maria and walk into the house. So he's explaining to them and they don't understand at all. So Pastor does this, like, and pick up Maria. They still do not understand. So
I think they understood it, but no.
So then we decided, well, we'll just have them walk hand in hand. So we were trying to tell them what we want them to do. Did not understand. So, come here, Barb. So Barb and I demonstrate. I take Barb's hand and I want to show them what we mean, like to walk into the house. So I'm going like this for some reason. So they finally get it that we want them to go in the house, but Maria walks in like this. It was just hilarious. Okay, Barb.
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Pastor and I went up to this church behind those children. That is their church. It was only a few blocks from our work site. On the right is the front of the church, and on the left is a view of the back of the church. This is on the church compound. Everything in Juarez is fenced or walled in. Even the homes, the shacks that they live in the neighborhood where we built the house, every house has a fence around it of some kind. And there are dogs everywhere. That picture of the kids, there was a dog in that picture. They wander into the church because we kept the dog. Well, there's one of the dogs. Yeah, see on the right? There's there's the dogs. And they're apparently harmless. So this is across the yard from the church. Next to the steps, there's a bathroom. And then to the right of that, so to speak, well, they flushed. To the left of that is a room they use as a Sunday school classroom. And then to the left of that is somebody lives there. Jonathan actually lived there with his mother and 2 sisters, I think.
And the father.
Oh, the father. And there was a grandma somewhere. So Pastor and I went, we had no idea what to expect. We had a translator. If you look behind these restaurant booths, that is their church. You can see between those two pillars on the right, you could just see a lectern. And behind the lectern, that white, that's the altar. And there were 4 pews. And the baptismal font, you can just see part of there. The children, we had different number of children every day. Some of them came every day. Some of them came once and didn't come. We did first day we did creation, and then we did Noah's Ark, and they did rainbows. It says, God always keeps his promises in Spanish. It was so interesting, the grown-ups who came to help didn't speak Spanish, didn't speak English, so we had to talk through a translator, but they loved, look at this father or grandfather, how intently he is working on this art project. They all did. Every grown-up sat down and worked on the art projects every day. There is this human need, I think, to create beauty.
And we were told that they don't have supplies to do crafts like this. That the only thing that they have for the children to do art with is cereal boxes. They cut them apart, and that's what they draw on or cut or paint. They don't have paint, but so they loved all of this.
I want to mention the lady standing in the Thrivent shirt. Her name is Rosie Lira. She is a member at another church, Cristo del Rey, about 5 miles down southeast part in central part, southeast of Vinapra. And she's instrumental in the whole process of connecting us to the right places and making sure that the kids knew that we were coming and were invited to come for those particular days. So she's one of the people pretty instrumental in facilitating what we were doing. And she is a deaconess trained in the LCMS. Oh, and she didn't speak any English. That was a little bit of a problem.
Why are there rocks on the floor?
Yes.
Oh, the floor, that's the floor. It had been concrete at one time, but cement kind of breaks down after a while. So every morning the ladies would go in before we got there, and they would wet down that floor because otherwise it was very, very dusty. So every morning when we got there, the floor was wet.
So it's very rough cement.
Yeah, very rough. Looks like, you can see the rocks in it. So we would get there and Pastor would do the Bible story with a translator. Managed to find some
Look how I poured them.
children's books in Spanish, and one of the ladies read the book in Spanish and then would translate what Pastor had to say.
Can I just say, I went 2 days and helped them.
Yes.
And what I noticed the 2 days when I was there, all the kids wanted to be in the front pew.
Yeah.
They all wanted to be right there to hear. They didn't want to be in the back pew, which is so totally opposite from our situation.
Yeah.
We were all running to the back. They were all crowded into that front pew.
The children were a little wary of us. We did bring sandwiches every day, so that was a big draw, food. And I have to tell you, my attempts, the lady, Rosie is on the right, and then in the center is Marissa. She was our translator. She was a real godsend to us. And on the other picture is Pastor trying to get these kids to act out the story of the birth of Jesus. The box there, that's our manger. And they did manage, but, you know, had a good time doing it. There's just more pictures of the kids, and they loved having their pictures taken.
I just want to make one comment. I did not realize we had that picture. In the background is the door to the kitchen at that, there. They had a snowman on their door. And off to the side, verses. We did print those, picture those, and we printed them off back there. They were in Spanish, we printed English. But we were mad they didn't have a picture. Why they had a snowman on their door?
Yeah, I never asked that. Pastor was kind of a kid magnet, and he kind of practiced his Spanish on them. I did try to practice Spanish. Jonathan would teach us Spanish words at the work site. So the one day I was trying to learn colors, and so I learned blue is azul, and green is verde, and red is rojo, and purple is Murano. And so the next day we did the rainbow for our craft project, and I had done one to show the kids how to do it. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And so one of the little girls called me over and in Spanish was asking me, how do you make this color? And by her actions, I figured out what she was asking. And so I got this. I can do this in Spanish. I was so proud. So I said, you mix the azul, you mix blue and purple, right? You mix the azul and the Murano. And the kids just broke out laughing like, you idiot. And I'm like, azul and Murano, azul and Murano. And I picked the two colors, you know. So she got it. So she starts working, and then I went and I was talking to Marissa, the translator, and I'm telling her about this, and she just broke up laughing. She said, purple is Meraro. Merano is pig. So.
I wanted to talk about the ramen noodles. We did the donations here. Thank you everybody that donated the ramen noodles. Wednesday's ramen noodle day. So they made up the noodles. They added corn that day. And they put them in red solo cups. The funny thing was before they ate it, they all took sriracha sauce, or hot sauce, you know, the sriracha. So it was a lot different than our bland ramen noodles. And you can see the little kids eating it. The story I want to tell you about is there were a couple of kids, probably 6th, 7th grade, and they were sitting in these booths. And one of the boys spilled his ramen noodles. It was all over him, and in those seats had that kind of dip, so it was all underneath him. And he kind of got up and he had this look on his face. I thought I better go get a rag again. I'm a paper towel person, but there was no paper towels there. And I did think there'd be a rag, so I was kind of heading to the kitchen. And before I got there, I got to thinking, this is his lunch. He just spilled his lunch. These kids come for that lunch. He's not going to have anything to eat. So I grabbed one of the cups of the ramen noodles and I took it back there and I gave it to him. In his face when I gave it to him, I always remember that because he had something to eat and he wasn't going to sit there while everybody else ate. So I turned around and then I was going back to the kitchen. I thought, I gotta find something to clean this up. On my way to the kitchen, the one dog was on its way in. And by the time I got to the kitchen, I turned around, it was all gone. He had eaten the whole, it was all, kind of cupped in that thing. The dog had cleaned it up and he was gone. And later on in the day, he came back in, and the next time he came back in, he had like 3 or 4 dogs following him. So they don't waste much there. But and yeah, that is William passing out the ramen noodles, but they really do appreciate the warm meal. They had some left over, and Jonathan's mother had it in a kettle, and she was taking it back to their house across the courtyard. And you could just see they had food, they were taking it home.
Okay. I was trying to get away with that. Yeah, so this is before we actually started the build, and we were on the U.S. side at Ysleta, and we were doing the food, passing out the food, and I was trying to talk with this older gentleman, and he was sitting under a tree on a picnic bench, and there was an old lady next to him, and as I was talking, the lady said, in Spanish, she said, he speaks Spanish like a dog. So I was like, I understood that.
So that was our joke of the week.
I was there the day that Barb took the Sunday school materials over, and this was their Sunday school room, and they were so happy to get those materials. Yep, those were from our Sunday school. They cleaned house and sent. We were kind of concerned there was some really funny, putrid, salmon-colored paper that we thought, what are they going to do that with that? They were so happy to have that. And paints, was it temper paints? There we go. Yeah. This particular slide is, I think, when they sang to us. They prepared a song.
They sang, this is the Lord's Prayer in Spanish, if you can bring it up with the sound.
Yes, good idea. There was something that just struck me about these people that was quite amazing. The church ladies fed us our last day on our job site. They fed us lunch. And it's a generosity out of their poverty. You know, William comes up to help with that lunch. He doesn't have anything to give, so he gives of his time. And the ladies who came every day to help with the kids, you know, this is what they can give. And they fed us out of, I don't know how they got the food to feed us, but they wanted to share with us. And we were there, by the way, most mission teams who go down build a house in 5 days. We built it in 4. We rock. But that last day while we were eating lunch, the children, I could tell, were finally starting to trust. I have lots of selfies on my cell phone of myself and children, which I didn't print or show because my sinuses were crazy and my face was puffy and they're really awful. But I'm sitting there eating and I felt this. And it was the girls coming up to touch my hair. And I just thought, oh, I don't want to go home. I need another 6 weeks so I can learn more Spanish than just red and blue and purple and Marrano and pink. But it's just such an amazing experience to have these fellow members in Christ just reach out, you know, their own church family circle, and they just opened their circle and included us in with no judgment and no questions asked. We went to church on Sunday, the first Sunday we got there, 3 times in English on the mission compound in the morning, and then we went to their Spanish service, which was very interesting. The last person arrived just before the sermon ended. But you know, time is very fluid in the Hispanic culture. And then that afternoon, we went to church in Juarez, and again, they fed us after church. And we were all very brave, and JD and I especially, we ate cold refried beans. But it's an interesting, the church is building, between the church building and the building next to it, there's a space and there's a roof. So there's like a tunnel, and they had set up tables in there for us to eat. And well, the one on the left is at the church we went to On Sunday. The one on the right is the lunch we had on Thursday. Oh, that's Coca-Cola?
That's in the tunnel, that's the kids in front of the...
I didn't remember they had Coke.
It wasn't, it was Mr. Wow.
Oh.
Mr. Wow was Dr. Pepper.
Anyway, this tunnel went out to the street, and at one point I looked up and there was a man standing on the sidewalk right at the end of that tunnel, just standing there, looking in. And pretty soon somebody from the church congregation saw him and they walked toward him and they went like this, "Come in." And they brought this man in. And again, just closed their circle around him and fed him. Just some stranger off the street. It was just so moving to me to see that.
And you'll notice they were pretty good in tune. This is our eating together. Like I said, Tracy took really good care of us. The first night we did go out to eat. We were all kind of exhausted. The food had just gotten there. We didn't have time to get the stuff unloaded. But we had spaghetti one night. Every night we did a Walmart or a grocery store run. It seemed like we were actually, one of the big things was we were buying a lot of Gatorade. With it so warm, we bought Gatorade, and then is it Maya or Meal or something? There's some little electrolyte things that we were adding to water to make sure all of us would not dehydrate, because it was 103 the first day and 99, 98. So we really pushed the fluids. The lady on the left is the one lady from the church that made, I watched her that morning. She mixed up cornmeal, and then she had a little press. She put it in, and it was like a pastry turnover. And there was a meat and bean mixture, and folded it over, and then they deep fried it. It was definitely made with love. That face says a lot. On the upper right then is when we were eating. Lower right is when we were leaving to go back after we had eaten. We did a house dedication first, and then we went there to eat. This is scenes from our church. Yeah, on the compound. We did 2 church services there. Yes?
Yeah, back one. I don't think we have a picture of it, but there was a band of sorts at the church service. There was, help me out everybody, a guitar, basically a mariachi band, yeah. Well, but at the first one too, there was a band and a violin, or I mean a guitar and a violin. Anyway, the one man that was there with the guitar, and Joan, is she still here? Yeah. He was the leader of a mariachi band that went to the LWML National Convention. That band was invited by the LWML to go there. So I had a fun time talking with him, and they were on their way like the next couple of days to go to the convention.
Might get some flavor of this later on, but doing a, so there were a couple opportunities for doing a multilingual service, and it changes kind of how things work. You talk a little, and the translator will talk a little, and it goes back and forth, and so you just get a sense of, and sometimes you can kind of hear things in the other language. You start beginning to recognize words and phrases and actually even the emotion that is a part of the language. This is the church, Cristo del Rey. That's where we had that meal where the tunnel was. That was over through that door. But this was on the Mexican side of the border. Back it up. Oh, yes, when we first walked in, they turned on a familiar hymn now, Alaba Rey, and we all started singing at least the chorus. And then the mixture of Spanish and English. We would do that. We would sing, half the group would be singing in Spanish, half the group would be singing in English. This is the living room. Recognize that from the picture that helped us see the building. So every night we would have a Bible study time, and the basic idea of the Bible studies this time around was being incarnational. Jesus came from heaven to us. We are given to follow him as his servants, to go to other people, to enter into other people's context in order to share the gospel and the good news of Jesus Christ, and to serve our neighbor. Then also every day we did have devotions in the morning. If you look at the devotional booklets on the table, you'll kind of see the Bible studies we use, but then also there's a devotion schedule, and each member of the team had a devotional responsibility. Then this is the dedication. So Maria and William are there in the center, and you're seeing the Spanish-speaking side of the room. And then we were on the other side, the English-speaking side, and we also had opportunities to do back and forth, and to hear Spanish and English together. And so it was an interesting and good experience, the dedication worship time in the Lord.
We presented them with a cross that Delway and Hayes made for us. You can see she's holding it, and then a quilt that the quilters made for us to give to them, but we also took other quilts down also. We were supposed to be all done with the house by this point in time. We were not, and we were kind of perfectionists. We wanted to do another coating of mud, and we wanted to paint it. So we did the dedication, we went and ate, and then we come back, and I think we mudded a little bit more, sanded, and then we actually went and got away for a little bit. We went to a market. We were looking for vanilla, and we never did find it. But and then we came back and painted, and we were not leaving till it was painted, because this is just nothing. We didn't want to leave them that way. So it was pretty late by the time we finished. I think it was 8 or so, which was pretty late.
As we were crossing the border.
Yeah, which is pretty late to still be on that side of the border. Otherwise, we tried to be out of there by then.
Just on this picture, on your table is a copy of the dedication service. If you want to look through it, you can see both English, Spanish, side by side.
And this little 2-room house, wired for electrical, but not wired up yet, not fully finished, no plumbing. Maria said she felt like a queen. This was the first real house she had ever lived in.
Okay, now.
Maria also had told us through Alonzo that for the first time in her life, she was going to be able to sleep at night. If there was a storm, she wouldn't have to worry about the roof falling in on top of them. So for the first time in her life, she had an actual roof over her head.
How old were they? How old? 70.
70, yeah. And she really, she didn't have a lot to say. And if you talk to her, she'd talk. We gave her the quilt and the cross, and all of a sudden, whoo, she just started talking. The translator could not keep up with her, but you didn't know it. You knew exactly what she was saying. She was so happy. She kind of danced in a circle and cried because she had a house. I'm going to go to the next picture. I will. It's one of those that we, probably 3 of us would have preferred not to be in here, but here we go. That is not one of my better looks. It was hot. Like I said, you can see the t-shirt tied up. I don't like hats, so I had it on crossways, but who cares? This is kind of like how the week was. The one on the left is, what happened? We spent a lot of time in a 15-seater van when he was out and riding around together.
This is one of those pictures that we're laughing about, and what happens in El Paso stays in El Paso.
I would not have been leaning in if I knew he was doing that.
Well, I don't think he'd have puckered up if he knew anyone was taking a picture. And yeah, and you two, or they never sat together, so why we had them together that time? Because the guys were usually split up.
Not
and
after
then...
that.
Okay, let's go on. These are pictures of the children. Renee, do you have anything to say? Oh, want to say anything about the children?
So, I think the second day we were there, see that ball the little boy is holding? We had noticed that that was the only toy we had seen the first day that we were there. There were children in the streets and wherever, but we only saw that one ball, so we knew they didn't have toys. So Roxy and I decided to go to Walmart in El Paso, and we brought bubble wands the next day. And you would have thought we gave them gold. They had so much fun, including Maria. She had a bubble wand, and she was playing with that and was so excited. So every day after that, as soon as we showed up, they would be in the van looking to see what we brought for them. Yeah. So the second day we did go back to Walmart and we bought more bubble ones because they wanted some for their siblings. So, and then another day we had candy for them. So they were really excited to see us show up. The children probably were my favorite part of the entire trip. For some reason we were kind of attached, and Jonathan on the left up there, we became very attached. He started drawing pictures for me, and Barb and I got really brave, and we would let them look at our phones. She would let them play games. I would let them look at my pictures. And Jonathan came upon a picture of my house, which isn't extravagant by any means. And he looks at me and says, "House? You?" And I said, "Yes." "Dollar?" He was asking me for $1. So they...
She's rich.
Yeah, because he thought I was rich after seeing my house. So, $1. So every day after that, he'd come to me, $1. So the last day I did finally give him $1.
Jonathan also kind of acted as our translator. He knew just enough English, back and forth, so he helped quite a bit, you know. This is one of my favorite pictures. Like I said, again, look at Maria's face.
We are the amigos there.
I must say, one of the other things is we were very lucky for that, how hot it was. William had these trees that he tended. He had a hose running nonstop. This little hose, the water came out like that, and done like that, and it sat on a tree, and it ran all day, and it never got wetter than this. But he had trees in his yard. Nobody else had trees. So we had those to get out of the sun.
That was the reason why the house that we built was actually shorter than what we thought it was going to be, because he valued his trees so much that he would rather have a shorter house than have any of those trees taken out. Because, and the shade is, I mean, it is an asset like you wouldn't believe in that heat. So his house was actually a little shorter than what we thought it was going to be. He did not want to lose a tree.
When we got done, we had it all painted. We were ready to head back. Oh, we don't have to play that.
Yes.
We don't have to. There's a disclaimer here, okay?
So make a joyful noise unto the Lord, right?
Yeah.
So,
We were in there. It was we were so emotional. We went in and we said, we're going to sing Praise God from whom all our blessings flow. So we're singing at the top of our voices. It echoed in there. It sounded magnificent. Let's listen to it.
Until we heard
We laughed at that.
I haven't heard it.
Oh, really? Oh, it sounded great that night. Well, we were
This is kind of painful.
You can see how nice the house is inside.
So that wasn't bad. That was us.
If you noticed, did you hear the train whistle in the back? The train tracks were just on the other side of the wall. There was trains going
Oh,
by.
and then there were the helicopters, the Border Patrol helicopters.
Yeah.
It was in Spanish.
That's the group that flew. The rest, Pastor left at like 3:34 in the
I
morning.
left at 4:30.
Yeah. And,
Well, sort of.
And then we got Sean and Bill on the way. They drove back, and the rest of us went out. This is kind of the traditional picture everybody takes. We did not get it with all our whole group. That's our finished picture. So, that's it. Yep.
Does anybody have any questions? Janet?
How about the health kits? I don't talk about those. Oh, the health kits.
Yes. We left them there. They want,
On the American side.
yeah, at Ysleta. They want to put them in backpack kits. Is that correct? For back to school?
They create, and we didn't know this when we did the health kits in the first place, but they create 800 backpacks to give to kids in the fall. And they pass that out both sides of the border. And a part of those backpack kits, they obviously have school supplies, but they also have hygiene supplies that they include too. So they will just use our hygiene kits and put them in the backpacks. They want to make 800 of those. So maybe we want to kind of keep that in mind for next go around when we collect items. I think we're actually thinking about starting a collection nearly right away and doing like an item a month. So bring toothpaste one time, toothbrushes another time, deodorant another month. And that way we can start collecting maybe to help out with more. I think, how many did we actually bring down?
I think we had 30 that we took down, and then we made, what, 9 or 10 more when we were down?
So about 40 health kits that we were able to give. Maybe we can do a little bit more next time.
I have one other thing I see that we're gonna, Lori will put this over there. Before we finished sheetrocking the wall that went out in the middle, we all wrote messages in the inside. We have pictures of that. We signed it with our names. Yep.
I have one last thing. Each day when we cross the border back into the U.S., there were people along the border, Mexican people, selling their goods. And it was anything they were selling for a certain amount of money. And one day I saw a woman holding head scratchers. And a pastor was driving, so he was closest to her, and he asked her how much. And she said $5. Is that right? $5? Well, I didn't have that much with me, so I asked, would you take $2? So he said, would you take $2? And she said yes. Well, then when I looked, I only had $1. So pastor said he had $1, so we would buy this head scratcher together. So, since we are co-owners of the head scratcher, I'd like Pastor to have it for the rest of the month of July.
It's our joint custody agreement.
If no one has any other, do you have any more to say?
I just have something to say about JD also. We've kind of forgotten about him. Everybody's kind of gone around. JD hasn't said much, but JD was such a hard worker. He was, the second day we started on the roof, and he wanted to be up there on the roof. So he got up there on the roof. And then that night he told me, I don't want to go back up on the roof. The next day, JD was back up on the roof. Well, the day after that, he's like, well, I'll do anything, but I don't want to go back up on the roof. Pretty soon, JD was back up on the roof again. So JD was on that roof a lot, and it was 20 or 30 degrees hotter up on that roof than down on the ground or in the house or anything. Well, so we're inside, we're mudding, I think, is what was happening inside the house. And we're kind of trying to clean up because we knew we were going to be going to downtown Mexico to do a little shopping and stuff. And JD is up on the roof. He's laying on the roof looking at me, and I was just kind of talking to him, and it was no big deal. And I went off to do something else, and all of a sudden I heard, hey, hey! I looked, there's JD up on the roof, but somebody had packed the ladder away. So JD, even though he didn't want to be up on the roof, was on the roof a lot, and he worked hard up on that roof, and he worked hard every place he was put to work. So JD was, like Jean said, our spark. He was always working, and when we were tired, he was jumping around singing a song or doing something, and we're like, oh, I guess I do have a little more energy. So thank you, JD, for everything you did and everything that happened there. That was a joy to have you with us.
Will that embarrass JD if we talk about sick days? Okay. You know, I think as a group we're so proud of JD that he made the trip. I think we're so thankful that Roxanne brought him. That takes a lot, you know, to say, let's do this, and so they came. And when we got on the plane, we hadn't really visited with JD a whole lot, you know, and as the days went on, the guys were giving him a rough time, you know, like when where the building was real close, to get it painted, they were talking about tying a rope on him and pulling him back and forth. You know, so they were giving him a rough time, and he took it and he gave it back. The last day, Renee had her bag too full to go home. It was too heavy. And so she was having a hard time when we got on the plane in Fargo, or in Dallas to come home. We got off in Fargo, and all of a sudden I hear this, okay, where's it at? And JD picks her hot pink bag up, throws it over his shoulder, and he's getting off in Fargo. And that's where all his peers are at. So we all thought, whoa, this is a pretty great kid. And anyone else? Is that all right? Actually, before I go to Bart, Dale, do you have a question? Oh, I thought you had.
I just wanted to say that besides the work that we did, building a house, and how much that meant to that family, and what we did with the kids, and hopefully reached some of those with the good news of Jesus Christ. It was such a joy and a blessing to me to be a part of this group, being there together in heat and sweat and dirt and garbage. And it was such a bonding experience for us. I highly recommend this. And by the last day, all of us were saying, well, the next time we come, da-da-da-da-da.
Would all of you do it again if you could?
In a heartbeat, yes.
When we got down towards the end, we were in kind of a hurry to paint, so I said I would do the ceiling. So I painted about as fast as I've ever painted, and when I got done, this little spot is the only spot of paint I had on me. I thought, awesome! And I looked at everybody else, and I don't know if it was me, pastor was white. You were picking paint out of your hair for weeks. So I apologize if that was me, but I stayed clean. And then kind of an inside story, but I don't think Bill will ever play catch with JD again. Playing catch with the football. That would have been funny to see. I'm sorry I missed that.
Well, I was just going to say too that, this was a trip that when they started organizing this and the date was set up that we were going to go the 2nd of June, I hadn't even considered going. I mean, on the farm, we're too busy the first week in June to be gone for a week. Carrie was wondering how she was going to get there, and I said, we'll get you there. We'll make sure it works. And we were going to have the one meeting in church here to talk about this, and I hadn't even considered going on this trip. And I said, I'm not sure, I don't remember what pastor's sermon was that Sunday, but I sat down in church, and about 1/4 of the way through the sermon, all of a sudden, I decided, I'm going to go. We can make it work. I'm going to go down to El Paso, go over to Juarez, and help build a house. And I don't know why, but evidently the Holy Spirit moved me somewhere. And so I would not have given that experience up for anything. We were with a great group of people, and the thing is, we were part of Emmanuel Church. We were doing this in the name of Emmanuel, and I would encourage anybody that has any possible way that they could go on this trip next year, which everybody says next year when we go, we're going to do this, we're going to take these tools. Everybody's making plans to go again. Give it some thought, give it some prayer, because probably one of the best experiences of my life, and I don't think I will ever forget the fellowship and the kinship that we learned with some of our Mexican neighbors in Christ. The one thing about us, we don't speak the same language, but we have the same God. We pray to the same God, we worship the same God. It was very obvious in some of the church services that we went to. The words weren't necessarily the same. We could look at the English, we could look at the Spanish, and whether the sermon was being given in Spanish or English, you didn't understand every word, you didn't get every word, but you kind of got the drift of what was going on, and everybody was getting the same message. So I would like to encourage anybody that could possibly do this in the future for when we go back again. We could use more people. We've got other projects we could do along with building houses, and I don't think when you come back you're not the same person you were when you left. It changes you, and I think you're going to be changed for your entire life.
Ditto. I will wrap this up really quick, but as you can see, we have too much energy trying to talk about this. It just kind of oozes out of us. And I don't think, there's only 4 of us, I think, in this group a year ago thought we would go. So in a year, what we've accomplished. We all had different talents, we all came together. We have more things we could do, like Barb said, 2 houses, we could do longer VBS, there's an eyeglass project. Consider doing something with us. But I do want to just say this. There's a quote. It says, God doesn't send those that are prepared. He prepares those he sends. And I want to thank Pastor Truman for his guidance and Bible studies. Going into this, it looked, part of the plan was to build a house and to do VBS. But we were all asked by him what our main reasons were, and one of the main reasons were that we wanted to do something for our church. We wanted to develop that deeper relationship with our congregation. But our main reason was to grow in our faith. And a big part of that was the questions he asked. the Bible studies he led us in, and by making us do our devotions. Thank you so much, Pastor Truman. But I think we all felt every step of the way that we had the Lord's presence with us. We were not alone. It was quite an experience. So with that said, if